Hey everyone, Brian and Kevin coming to you from the Storage View Lab. We've got a quickie for you today, and what we have in store is a little Lexar microSD card, 1066x in their silver line. This guy is little enough where you could swallow it.
I would say I probably could, but I probably shouldn't do that.
Isn't that part of your testing, though, for all microSD cards to ensure that it's up to environmental standards and security by swallowing it and then trying to read data after?
No, see, I test it, I swallow it, and then I hand it over for photos.
Oh, I'm glad I'm not doing the photos. Sorry about that, Lucy. Anyway, it's a low cost but relatively high performance micro SD card that goes in devices from our little drone friend here to Android devices. How about my iPhone? I'd love to get some more storage on that bad boy.
No chance.
Okay, so that's not going to happen, but there's all sorts of other things that do take micro SD cards. It's the predominant form factor for mobile devices that allow for external storage. Not like iPhones, but anyway, we'll jump quickly into the deck here and show you what we've got going on. All right, so stowing your micro SD card in a Christmas ornament is a creative way to gift one to your loved ones this season.
Yes, and it's very small. It could basically fit anywhere, and because it includes an SD card adapter, it can fit in even slightly bigger devices.
Okay, so let's see what we've got here on the spec sheet. Now this guy comes in capacities from 32 gig to 512. We reviewed the 128, but it's important to note that the 32 gig card operates a little bit more slowly. And man, when you look at the speed class on these things, the class 10, U3, U1, V10, V30, I mean, it's crazy how many different speed ratings there are in SD cards these days. They look like NASCARs with 8 dozen logos on the sides. But it is important, I suppose, and the new one that they've honed in on, the SD Card Association, the A1, A2, is actually pretty cool in terms of being useful for customers, I think.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes down to what the minimum speeds supported are, because you want to have... A lot of these devices don't really care what the max performance is. It really comes down to what the minimum is for worst case scenarios.
Yeah, and this one's focused on application performance, and I think they worked with Google on this one for Android phones to really get to the point of what do I need if I'm going to run apps there, not just use it for photo storage or recording target or whatever. So if apps are going to run on the card, what do they need to be able to deliver? And in this case, these are system-wide numbers, so these are going to vary from the card performance itself, but it's an important distinguishing designation, this A1, A2. It's useful for people that are going to run apps. And then if we take a look at the video-centered use cases for these, that's the new V rating down the right side. So the class, it's kind of humorous to look at the old class 2, 3 to 610 or whatever is on there now. They still use those circle 10 on the card, but it's pretty...
I never knew that, like, the circle, the number aligned with the megabytes per second.
That's what you get when you spend a couple hours on the SD Card Association website. But importantly on this card, we're talking about a V30 rating, which means that it's capable of capturing, as you see on the right there, some 4K video. If you're going to do high-end work, then you can pretty clearly see if it's a video use case, you want to get a 60 or potentially a 90 rated card. A reminder, though, this is the Lexar Silver. It's sort of a upper mid-range kind of card. They do have faster cards, but these V scores do help you start to figure that out.
Yeah, and obviously this goes into what the performance rating is, but you also have that endurance metric to make sure you pay attention to, because not all cards will be created equal, and there are certain devices created for certain video professionals, and you really want the right card for the right job.
Yeah, and that is a good point. Lexar has like 9 of these on their site, 9 different micro SD cards, so you can't just look at the video speed class, but it is a useful indicator. So why don't we take a quick look at the performance that we found.
And we were testing a 5 gig sample size with write-through cache, and this is an area where it's closer in performance to what the device itself is going to give. You can enable write buffering, but the problem with that is it's more, you're not really seeing the card's true, not necessarily potential, but the true
the card level performance.
Yes.
You're talking more, when within a system, you'll see the overall system-wide performance.
Yeah. So in our testing, we did large block sequential, large block random, and small block random. So for our sequential, I suppose top line speeds, you're going to see around 86 megabytes a second read, around 75 megabytes a second write. Now, when you go to a random workload, that's going to be more of a, let's say you're writing two files at the same time, which
Sure.
the device is starting to see not fully sequential transfer speeds.
It holds up pretty well there.
Yeah, you still maintain in the mid 80s, so 84.4 megabytes a second read and 65.7 megabytes a second write. And on the random side, we saw 2485 IOPS and 562 IOPS write. It came in a little bit below where the V2 spec would be, but again, we're testing write through, not with write buffering.
Right, and so when you take a look at this little fellow, man, it's hard to pick these things up. You got to kind of stick it with your finger a little bit.
It might not be the best thing today with COVID, but
Well, you're not going to, unless you're going to swallow it for protecting your files from evil spies or something. But overall, it's a low-cost card that has a decent performance profile. We didn't really hit the top-end spec, but we never do with these, or even SSDs for that matter. And for a lot of the use cases, like a drone, like an Android phone, like a dash cam, those are all places where this will do pretty well. We did get a lot of questions, though, about does this work with my XYZ? That's just going to be something that you're going to have to consult with the device manufacturer to make sure that these performance numbers that we're showing you are consistent with what they need to be able to write the files to the little card itself. But at this price point, really highly cost-effective card, and it's from a brand that everyone knows and we generally trust. So we would prefer you spend a couple bucks more on something like a Lexar or a Samsung card rather than some of the super low-cost options that tend to have much more variability in the quality of the NAND used inside. So overall, a decent card, has a pretty good performance profile, and should be pretty much universally compatible with anything that uses microSD. Thanks for checking out the review.